Slide, National Institute on Aging. NIA and NHLBI Entrepreneur Workshop Series. Value Propositions and Differentiation. August 17, 2021.
I'd like to welcome you to the NIA and NHLBI Entrepreneurship Workshop Series. Value Propositions and Differentiation.
Slide, 4 pictures with names and titles. Text, nia.nih.gov/SBIR.
Today's featured speakers are going to be John Reinhart, who is an entrepreneur in residence with the National Institute on Aging, followed by Gautam Prakash, who is an intellectual property advisor at the National Heart, Lung, and Blood Institute. We also have Don Rose, who is from Venture Partner, who will also be joining the presentation. Moderating the session will be Monique LaRocque, and I'm Kiara Palmer.
Slide, a bullet point list.
Thank you, Kiara. Our workshop format, we will be going through a brief overview of value propositions and differentiation. We're really going to spend a lot of time in our breakout rooms, and that's where we feature our moderated experts. Our panelists will be John Reinhart will be leading the Creating a Successful Go-to-Market Strategy. We'll also have IP strategy as a differentiator, and then the unique value proposition. Based on what you have entered for us, we will put you into those breakout rooms. We also want to remind you to please make sure you have the latest version of Zoom. But if you need any help, please feel free to chat us.
Slide, about the Entrepreneurship Series, a bullet point list.
This series is co-hosted by NIA and the National Heart, Lung, and Blood Institute. Our goal is really to offer research entrepreneurs and small business owners expert guidance on the whole startup process and how to be more successful through the commercialization process. We have been conducting sessions through 2021 and will continue them through 2022. We are really trying to get current awardees to help apply these techniques and information to their small business goals and endeavors. And we will also have all of our archived workshops. If you've missed one, you can go to the NIA Office of Small Business Research archived events page. If you look in chat, we actually have that link available for you. And we're very dedicated to not only having this session, but having an ongoing discussion. So we will have additional opportunities for experts from NIA and NHLBI. If you are an existing SBIR awardee, you can connect with an entrepreneurship expert for one-on-one in-depth conversation. If you are not yet an awardee and you are an applicant, we can also connect you to someone to help you to think about how you can apply to the SBIR program.
Slide, Entrepreneur Workshop Series, a bullet point list, and a link titled View Past Workshops.
Just to give you an overview of our workshop series, you can see the ones that we have completed already on your screen: opportunity assessment, corporate governance and management, in-depth information about intellectual property, licensing and partnering agreements, and value propositions and differentiation is today. All of these sessions will be online, but you can also think ahead and plan on putting this on your calendar for October 5th. You can register today and we'll put that link in chat. And just to give you a heads up on some of the other ones we have come up, really about helping you to pitch and promote your company, as well as thinking through investment funding. We'll have those end of year and the beginning of next year. Next slide, please.
Slide, Creating a Successful Go-to-Market Strategy.
With that, I am delighted to introduce John Reinhart. He's again our entrepreneur in residence, and he's going to talk about creating a successful go-to-market strategy. Please, again, reminder to join us on LinkedIn and Twitter and to fill out a feedback form. Welcome, John.
Slide, Key Elements, a table. John appears in a video call at the upper right-hand corner of the slide.
Thank you, Monique. I appreciate everybody being with us. I'm especially excited to hear from Gautam and Don on the subject matter expert topics that they'll be sharing with us. Go-to-market's a broad topic. We have a broad audience. We have digital health, consumer health, age tech companies. We also have therapeutics and drug device companies on the line. So I just want to set the table here with some key elements that are parts of determining what your market should be and how to determine a great customer fit for your innovation. The first part of any kind of development is the research and validation phase, which many of you are in, looking to customer discovery and pilots to kind of pick your way through different variations of who could potentially be a customer and what sector makes sense. In distribution, branding and marketing, some of you in the digital therapeutic world, in the therapeutic world, unlike the digital health world, may end up with a licensing agreement as your go-to-market and not traditional branding and marketing, though some of my slides will cover sort of a broad level overview of go-to-market. And then funding and scaling, the ability to raise capital will greatly affect where and how you go to market and what techniques you are able to use. Social media obviously being a very cost-effective way to go to market, but when you get into trade shows and exploration of partnerships, inventory and so forth, the costs go way up pretty quickly. Next slide.
Slide. A pie-shaped graphic with 4 pieces.
So I like to look at go-to-market in 4 phases: a research phase, a validation of that research phase, a delivery, minimal viable product to a customer, kind of a proof of concept, and then diffusion being the broader distribution of an innovation. Next slide.
Slide. A drawing of a home, hospital, nursing home, and a headstone.
Most of us kind of conceptually think about a life pattern, especially around aging, in sort of a linear fashion: home to hospital to nursing home, and then unfortunately that there's an end of life phase. But healthcare, especially the sector we've all chosen to spend our passion and life in, is much more complicated than this. Next slide.
Slide. Market segments, a flowchart.
So I just gave you here a very quick high overview, and the slides are available. There's this great divide between what people want and what people need. And so as we move down a scale of active adult communities to continuing care retirement communities to acute hospitals and hospice even, we really have a differentiation in who's the customer and who's the user of the services versus who's paying and who's the purchaser of the services. But the sectors here are very unique, and these niches provide one global view of how you should think about go to market. What niche or where can you find detailed evidence that you have a good fit? Next slide.
Slide. A drawing of homes and healthcare facilities.
This is really a better way to look at aging, and it's a series of ins and outs of transitions of care and quality of life scenarios. And so I've kept these slides for a long time because I think it gives us a broader perspective that healthcare is always, and care and life and quality of life is always in a transitional phase. Next slide.
Slide. A graphic with 3 nested circles labeled SOM, SAM, and TAM.
Most of you are very familiar with the sort of the principles of total addressable market, service available market, and service attainable market. This just basically says, will your solution have a broad enough appeal to a large enough audience to make a difference? And then the key is to focus on what is the attainable market and where can you, I call it, get a beachhead of evidence that your solution has value. Next slide.
Slide. The new horizon. A graph showing cost in days, with cost gradually decreasing over time.
This is a slide that talks about the new horizon. We all tend to want to think about healthcare in our own personal way. And because of that, we're having a tendency to look at solutions that allow people to age in place. I always say age in place with grace. But the new horizon is really the days in acute care and inpatient care and ambulatory care. They're getting shorter and smaller as we move down to the lower cost settings, but also the more preferred personal care situation of being in your own home and your own environment, knowing full well that your home could be in a community living and not just an individual home. Next slide.
Slide. Framework of the 4 Ps of marketing. A pie-shaped graphic with 4 pieces.
So I like to work, when we work with companies as EIRs, we get the pleasure to give some guidance. I like frameworks, and frameworks are ways to look at things that are kind of break down and make them easier to think about. But I always ask the companies that we work with to think about doing a write-up of the 4 Ps. The product you're going to sell, the price you're going to sell it for, the place you're going to meet the purchaser, the person that's going to buy it or influence the purchase, and then what brand or promotion or headline lets your product be attractive to somebody. And I always use the comment, if you're walking down a trade show, what does the booth headline say to you? And that, when you talk about go to market, you have to communicate with your market effectively and efficiently. Next slide.
Slide. Who is the purchaser, the influencer, KOL, and the user/consumer? A drawing of homes and healthcare facilities on an island, surrounded by smaller islands with labels such as family, workforce, and insurance.
So when you think about healthcare, we have a unique situation where, again, the purchaser, maybe Medicare, Medicaid, maybe third-party insurance, the influencer, maybe the physician, or maybe a recommended service provider, and the user consumer are not direct. So this is not, in most regards, a B2C sale. And because of that, you have the transitional ecosystem of going in and out of different care settings and different living settings. But the other plates that are around the middle plate here are the things that are moving the middle plate, and it's policy, it's technology, it's governance, it's insurance, it's pharma, it's workforce. And all these, I think in all your thinkings, you need to take into account the sector as a whole, the influences on the sector, as well as the consumer is always in transition in settings and even where they live. So that's just a kind of a quick whet your appetite on go-to-market, and we'll look forward to the breakout session, and I think we'll go deeper. Next slide.
Slide. IP strategy as a differentiator.
I'm going to turn it over to my good friend and colleague, Gautam, who will talk to you about intellectual property.
Thank you, John.
Slide. Tips, a bullet point list. Gautam appears on the video call.
So most of you know what intellectual property is. And for those of you who think it's just patents, really what I want to say is it's more than just patents. In fact, John just mentioned one when he talked about promotion. So what do we think of when we think of promotion? We think of slogans, we think of trademarks, we think of the look and feel of products. Those are all forms of intellectual property. And I would encourage you, when you think about a strategy on how to develop intellectual property, that it does not begin and end with patents. It may begin there, but it shouldn't end there. And there are certain technologies where the others, the three big ones, besides patents, trademarks, copyright, and trade secrets, may be more relevant. And in particular, in crowded fields, as I mentioned here, trade secrets. So this could be a database that you have. So we think of trade secrets as the traditional one as a formula, like the formula Coca-Cola, but it doesn't have to be that. It could be something a little more difficult to duplicate, proprietary customer list, or the property that the stuff that you have, the knowledge base that you have. So it's good to be able to protect those things because they provide an additional way for you to differentiate your product from the other products, because especially in a crowded field, a lot of people will have patents on the same sorts of technology. It's important to note that you can overlay different forms of technology. And actually, we've got a nice series of questions on whether that people have already written in about whether you can use multiple forms, patents versus trade secrets, trademarks, and copyright, and so on. And the answer is yes. All of them provide different forms of protection, different avenues. So you should consider all of them. And really, when people talk about what does one mean by saying, oh, I'm developing intellectual property strategy, or you should develop intellectual property strategy. So what you're doing is you're thinking about what are the forms of intellectual property that you can use to protect your product, and what best serves that aspect that you want to protect. So that's what a strategy is, to think about what you have, how you want to protect it, and the best way to go about doing that. So we're going to explore these and other topics in the breakout room. And I am going to turn it to my friend and colleague, Don Rose, who not only is a venture partner, but also happens to be a chemist. So I'm already biased in favor of him. So Don, go ahead.
Don appears on the video call. Slide. A cover of a book titled Mad Libs, with an excerpt showing a paragraph with several words missing.
Thank you, Gautam. So I'm going to talk about value proposition, value in general, but value proposition as a thing that you can create for really articulating the value you're creating for the customer. We'll talk a lot more in the breakout room about value you create for investors and partners perhaps. But I start out with this Mad Libs, which is apparently still around. I didn't realize there's probably a digital version of this instead of the old paper version that we all filled out in the cars on our way to the beach. But it's a kind of fill in the blank sort of thing. So on the next slide, I have what I call the unique value proposition Mad Lib, where you go through and it's, it seems a bit prescribed, perhaps.
Slide. A list.
But what it does is it provides a framework for having you really articulate all the elements of value that someone would be interested in, whether it's an investor or whether it's a customer. And I actually use this in some of the entrepreneurship classes that I teach. And so just take you through this. We really, most of the time, work through the first 4 or 5 of these, where we talk about the venture, the innovation, and kind of customer language, what's the key benefit? And then I would say probably the most important is line 4, or the unlike part of this. This is the unlike your competitors. And then the next one is, what are the key differentiators that allows you to differentiate yourself from the competitors for the beachhead customer? And typically stop there. Optionally, you can go through the last 3, which are, like I said, key purchase motivation insight at a price relative to the competitors that delivers some sort of outcome to the client. So and when I teach this, I teach it in a kind of an example way. So the next slide has a, let's go to the next slide after this.
Slide. Kids' gyms. A list appears line by line.
It's what I call kids' gyms. And I use this construct as an example of how to kind of construct this. And the idea is that kids that are kids that are in middle school need a gym to go to. And so when I put together the value proposition, it's kids' gyms. The innovation is a kid-friendly gym that provides strength, agility, and flexibility training. Unlike adult gyms, kids' gyms offers age and body appropriate training and equipment for middle school student athletes who don't have access to this type of facility, where athletes are given individual training plans. And by participating in kids' gyms, student athletes will be better athletes and suffer fewer injuries. Again, very prescribed, but it forces you, almost like poetry in a sense, it forces you to be very succinct in the way you do it. So the next slide just kind of collapses all this down into the actual value proposition statement.
Slide. Value proposition.
And I'm not going to read it to you because you just heard about it, but this is what you end up with in terms of the value proposition statement. Now, this is the beginning of what you want to deliver then as you're talking to investors, as you're talking to customers about what value you're delivering, because it covers all the elements that you need. In fact, it's in a sense almost like a business plan in one paragraph, because it has all the elements that are there. Next slide.
Slide. The quantified value proposition.
So the next step beyond just a value proposition is what I call the quantified value proposition. You need to have some quantification associated with that value in order to kind of go to the next level.
Slide. A circular graphic with the text UVP in the center, inside a box with values in the 4 corners, inside a larger box labeled economic value.
And so in this slide, go ahead and I think hit the animation. Yeah, so the what we're talking about is there's some sort of economic value that you're providing to the customer. And that economic value usually comes in one of 3 or maybe 4 flavors. So is it cheaper than the current solution? Is it faster than the current solution? Is it somehow better than the current solution? Or maybe there's some other economic value that you're delivering that makes it better. So again, the unique value proposition kind of sits in that middle, that statement we just finished. And around that, you can wrap this economic value that you need to kind of differentiate for both for investors as well as for customers. Next slide.
Slide. A list of quotes.
These are just some examples. And what you'll see here is some real numbers associated with this. So saving 25% on your water bill, reducing something 2-fold, increasing it 50%, sleeping better, knowing your loved ones are safe. So that's really more of a psychological or emotional value, if you will, and maybe not quite as quantitative. But sometimes you can't always quantitate the value you're delivering. But in general, the more quantification you can put into this, the easier it is to communicate this and to deliver that to investors as well as to customers. Next.
Slide. As a state versus possible state.
So the general way to think about quantifying a value proposition is to look at what we call the as-is state. What's the current state that the customer is currently working in? What's the existing solution that they're using to solve their problem? And then think about what the future state would be with your solution, by solving that problem, and trying to look at the quantifiable economic value difference from current state to future state or possible state. And that's really what you're trying to elucidate here, is the twofold difference, the 25% savings, the whatever it is that makes it fivefold faster. But it needs to be big. So that's another thing I would say here, is that if you're going to do a quantified value proposition, don't make it a 3% increase. Unless that 3% is really important. In general, people don't get too excited and jumping up and down about 3%. They get excited about tenfold differences. That's the kind of thing you want to look for. So anytime you can count these quantifiable differences in large numbers or large gaps, you'll get people's attention. I'm turning it back now to Monique, who's going to talk to you about the rest of the workshop series.
Monique appears on the video call. She returns to the slide showing a bullet point list of upcoming workshops and a link to view past workshops.
Thank you very much, Don, and all of our speakers. Just wanted to again remind you to please register today. We will have a regulatory strategy session for you on October 5th. As you can see, we'll pull together some top experts and really get into some details with you. So please go ahead and register, and then you can put the other dates on your calendar. Next slide, please.
Slide. Upcoming events.
We have a couple of other upcoming events that we thought would benefit your organization. There is the Catalyze Seminar Series, going beyond technical milestones and incorporating desirability into your innovation. You heard today a little bit about valuation. This is really about how do you make that case. So August 24th, please register for that. And we also will have a dedicated session that we're collaborating with Bio on, improving diversity in biotech by leveraging SBIR and SETR opportunities. That will be a panel discussion with some top leaders on how to improve diversity, and if you're a diverse organization, things that we can do to help you. If you're not a diverse organization, how to diversify, and all the funding opportunities we have available. Next slide.
Slide. Omnibus funding and contract solicitation, a table.
There are funding opportunities now that you can apply for, and we want to make sure this is on your radar. So the Omnibus grant funding opportunity, that is known as the 2021 NIH SBR SETR Omnibus solicitation. We'll include those links in chat, but you can see the next deadline is actually September 7th because the 5th falls on a weekend. But there are phase 1 budget limits and phase 2 budget limits known there, and we can set you up with a NIA expert to help you learn more about whether your research innovation is a good fit for the SBR and SETR program at NIA. And we also wanted to call your attention to the contract solicitation. That one is due on October 28th. And we have a variety of topics from improving the central nervous system, gene delivery systems, and supporting Alzheimer's disease and related dementias. We have a JIRA science-based crown wound treatment product development opportunity, as well as another one focused on the development of mechanism-based adult stem cell treatments to combat aging pathologies. Please feel free to reach out to Michael David Kern on the grant opportunity, as well as Armine Gazarian on the contract funding opportunity.
Slide. NIA Entrepreneurial Development Funding Opportunities, a table.
There is another piece of information I wanted to be sure to share with you. Brand new, for the first time, we have launched the READY opportunity. It's called Research and Entrepreneurial Development Immersion. There are 4 unique opportunities. I will not go into each one of them, but I did want to call your attention to the fact that there are 4 and what their deadlines are. You can see they range from September through October 26th. And what those budget limits are. We're really trying to support diversity and supporting the pipeline to empower spin-offs that are in academic research and research organizations that are going to help stimulate biomedical innovation, our economy, and ultimately the public good to support the mission of NIA. We are offering one-on-one meetings, and we'll send you the Calendly link if you would like to meet with Saroj Regmi. And he can go through all of these funding opportunities with you, how to apply. I do want you to, if you're interested in something like this, please reach out today because that deadline is coming up. Next slide, please.
Slide. Connect with NIA.
Here's some information about our contact and how you can keep in touch with us. We know that these events are important, but more important is the connection and the follow through that we can help you with after. So feel free to reach us at our website, nia.nih.gov. Again, follow us on Twitter and LinkedIn. You can check out our upcoming events and funding opportunities, as well as join our mailing list. And we are always here for you. So here's our email, nia smallbusiness@mail.nih.gov. And that information is also in chat.
Slide. Connect with NHLBI.
We also invite you to connect with NHLBI, our sister agency. If you can visit nhlbi.nih.gov and follow the NHLBI on Twitter and LinkedIn, as well as email them. And we'll include that information in chat.
Slide. Post-breakout. One-to-one meetings. NIA small business at mail.nih.gov. NHLBI_SBIR at mail.nih.gov.
So now we're going to go to letting you know about our post-breakout. I mentioned earlier that beyond this meeting and having the breakouts, we're willing to offer one-on-one meetings with our research and entrepreneurship support. If you are a potential applicant, you can get a meeting. If you are an awardee, you can get a meeting. So please feel free to email these two addresses.
Slide. Breakout rooms.
Next slide, please.
Slide. Ask the expert Q&A.
Now it's time for our breakout rooms. Let's talk a little bit about that. We will have our expert Q&A. And just to note, there are 3 unique rooms: creating successful go-to-market strategy. There you'll find John Reinhart and Dr. Diane Ignar. And the IP strategy as a differentiator will be led by Gautam, Prakash. And Don will be leading the unique value proposition.